Welcome to the Bank Marketing Show, the podcast that engages and informs you for success in today's marketplace. It's the show that will make you a better marketer with trends, tactics, and inspiration from experts and industry leaders. If you're wanting to impact your personal success and position your bank as the best choice in your market, you're in the right place. Now let's dive into today's show with your hosts, Chris and Dan.
Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of the Bank Marketing Show. I'm one of your hosts, Dan Novalis, and Chris Bates. Welcome to the show.
All right. How's it going, Dan?
It's good. How are you?
I'm good.
It's good to be back here. We've been doing a lot of interviews lately, so it's good to we can do a one-on-one conversation here today.
There you go. Yeah, we have. We've had some great guests on lately, and I know even looking ahead, we've got a couple in particular really great guests booked for the next couple of episodes as well. So it is sometimes it's nice to stop and have conversation, hopefully to the benefit of our listeners. And yeah, I think this will be a great one.
Yeah, they're always fun. They're all fun, but sometimes good to just have a conversation and get into a topic. So
that's right. That's right. So yeah, speaking of that. Here we are, depending on when you're listening to this episode, but we're going into early summertime, okay? So the kids and grandkids are getting out of school, and guess what? It's conference season. Dan and his agency out of St. Louis and my agency out of Mississippi, we're both involved in numerous state banking associations and platform user group conferences and all types of things in and around the financial institution industry. So it made us think about networking and the benefit of it. So, Dan, before we started recording, I liked your comment that we're not trying to sell the idea of networking. We all understand it's important, it's beneficial, but I think it can be great for us to dig in for a little while, maybe about, I don't know, some of the things to be conscious of and conscientious of.
Yeah, I mean, and for me, from the personal side, for me, like I'm relatively introverted by nature, right? I'm not afraid to admit it. I have to, my natural state is to just sort of like sit and crunch on something, or write a blog post, or do kind of thinking work. That's kind of where my superpowers usually lie. And so I force myself is kind of too strong of a word, but like I've got to remind myself a lot of like, I need to be out talking to people. I need to be doing things on whether it's at a conference or on social media, or even just like setting up phone calls instead of emails, things like that. Like, and I know, if you're on the other side of the like introvert extrovert spectrum, it's, that's probably your natural state, and you have to force yourself to do thinking work. But no matter who we are, it's important to keep this stuff top of mind, right? And
right.
I think there's a lot of different reasons to network, a lot of different ways to do it. So we just wanted to have this conversation today to kind of motivate people. And we're not, like you said, it's not really news to anybody that networking is something you should do.
Right.
But it's more about the motivation and process.
To all of you guys that are our listeners, that are marketers and C-suite folks and financial industry professionals of all sorts. See, I'm kind of at the other end of the spectrum, Dan, and it's not that neither is good nor bad. We all just have different personalities, different styles, different. Mine's more the, we go to a conference and I get into a room full of people, and an hour and a half later, my wife is going, "Are you ready to go yet? We've talked to 37 people," and I'm going, "I don't know. I'm just getting warmed up," and and I'm drinking water. So this is not, this is not any approach other than that I enjoy being out and engaging in conversation with people, and at the same time. Dan, what you and I agree wholeheartedly on is what you just said, is there have to be certain things that we do and intentionalities, and it's not just working a room like that. It's also engaging and networking on social media, LinkedIn and otherwise. And sometimes we'll dive into it here too, but man, I get a lot out of engaging with who might mildly be called competitors.
Yeah.
Or others that are in our marketing or the agency industry. And that's kind of a whole other set of networking, in fact, that you and I have done together,
Yeah.
in different parts of the country.
And, very rarely anymore, the competitor point's, I think, an interesting one for the audience. I mean, we're vendors, right? But I think a lot of banks tend to think of themselves as, these other banks are competitors, but really they're probably less competitors than there's less competition than you think, right? The bank's focus is a little bit different. Their geography is a little bit different. And there's a lot to learn, so I think like and like we learned, I think we could have easily, when you and I first met, said, oh no, we're competitors. We're not going to talk, but here we are creating, doing a podcast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier too, I think if you're, you mentioned we're kind of working the room at a conference, right? And I think some people think, networking is sales, or it's, you're looking for a job or those types of things. And I think the point we're trying to make is, no, it's also about education. It's about being part of the industry, and sales anymore, right? No matter if you're a loan officer, if you're a vendor like us, or if you're selling yourself, to interview at a job or to get promoted, like it's relationships. It's not the hard sell with a presentation and all that stuff. It's talking, finding solutions. And I think that's what we're talking about here. It's really easy if you're in a marketing role or a kind of back office bank role to stay in your bubble, but you'll become a much more rounded employee with more opportunities to move up, more opportunities to move sideways into different functions if you want to, if you network both within and outside of your bank.
Well, you and I were pre-discussing this too, and you mentioned on this show and otherwise, and as marketers and executives, we talk about building the bank's brand all the time. And we talk about that episode after episode and what we're doing. But this is also more of that individual professional, call it a personal brand. So like you say, regardless of your professional role, by getting out of networking, you're learning more by engaging in different facets and different aspects of your industry. So,
Right.
Maybe you don't know much about IT, or maybe you don't know much about operations, or maybe you don't really have a great understanding of what, other folks in different sectors of the C-suite, even in your own bank, are doing. And by networking, not only obviously internally, but with others that are within your industry, man, it's just the valuable takeaways to me, Dan, are so many things that I didn't know that I didn't know.
Yeah.
That I'm in conversation with somebody and they talk about a pain point in their business, or they talk about, oh man, we did this and it worked so well, or, a new platform that they utilize, or a different way to pitch messaging. And there's so many different ways. And if I'm not out engaging, and man, to your point, yes, it's operations, IT, backroom folks are in their bubble, but man, I think we all do that. I mean, who's not staring at a screen a large part of the day in just about anybody related to this industry? We all do. And we think, oh, I'm engaging with other people because I replied to 73 emails and I sent 40 of my own today. That's not networking.
Right.
That's working.
Right.
That's not networking. Agreed?
I agreed. Yeah. I mean, I think all of us default to email. And the reality is, like, if it's something super urgent, somebody's calling you, you can turn your email off for a few hours. We were talking before this too about when you're at a convention, you're at a training session, like, turn it off, delete the email app for a day. Nothing, it's not, being where you are is more important.
Right.
I read a piece of advice a couple months ago that stuck with me, and it's be where your feet are. And it's I just reflect back on that, and I try to remind myself of, hey, like, it's so easy. You can be walking a convention floor at that training conference, and your email on your phone dings, and suddenly you're lost in this email, hole for 15 minutes, and you've missed out on those opportunities. So I think, when we think about networking, it's really not much more than just being where your feet are, and, paying attention to the stuff around you.
Yeah. Well, and I think another important principle that goes along with that, Dan, that's within this networking, I heard it a long time ago. Do you know why we all love our favorite aunt or grandmother because they're totally you focused. You know what I mean? I mean, you don't go to your favorite aunt's house and she's sitting there talking about herself. Why is she your favorite aunt? Because you walk in the room and she lights up. Or your favorite uncle or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to, but that relative that just makes you feel so good. And it's a very basic human principle because they're so interested in you.
Right.
What are you doing? How's school going for you?
Yep.
How's work? How's your family? What, have you been out fishing lately? Whatever. And so when we're networking in these professional scenarios, whether it's kind of how you start a Zoom meeting, with a prospect or with, somebody in the industry, or whether you're at a conference and you're physically in front of someone, guys, again, this is not rocket science, but people like to engage with others that are interested in them.
Right.
So when I engage with someone at a conference, that it's about that. Tell me about your job. What are your pain points? What are,
Yeah. I think it's how to win friends and influence people.
There you go.
That says like the most beautiful sound to any other person is their own name.
Mm-hmm.
And that, that's just what I'm talking about. It's right. Networking is nothing more than just kind of being where your feet are, but asking questions, engaging, with the other person.
Right. And Dan, whether you're introvert or extrovert, when you ask those questions and you engage and have a genuine interest in somebody else, maybe they are the CFO, COO, maybe they are the whatever, and they're your quote unquote target audience. Okay. But if you have a genuine interest in them, then that's the ideal way to start that relationship. And organically, if things build from there that my business fits well with your business, great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Or maybe it doesn't, but rather than, making a networking connection and doing the hard sell about what I do and my services and my products. And let me tell you, and let me give you my elevator speech. No. I don't think that's the right way to do it. So you make a great point. We all live in that work bubble and we're all kind of fingers on the keyboard all the time, no matter what we do. But then when we do get out, being conscientious, right, put the phone away, be present where you are and engage selflessly. Or I think just some great tidbits. Again, this is not rocket science, but it's crucial.
And there's, I'm sure we've all read lots of, be a better networker kind of articles. Mm-hmm. But just, reminder that it's super important. I'm thinking here, like, let's talk about like the benefits of it, right? Mm-hmm. I think we touched on a second ago, people think of networking as, that's the realm of the loan officer, out there trying to shake hands and win deals. And like, yes, like that's a lot of how like a good loan officer like finds new business is networking. But I think for everybody, it's more than that, right? I think it's career growth, right? Like if you're looking to move up or change, move laterally to a different department, like you need to learn about that. And, that could be networking within your bank, with go to lunch, with somebody else in the bank, learn more about what they're doing, learn how they got there.
And you're increasing your own value the more that you know.
Yeah. And then you're more well-rounded.
Mm-hmm.
I think the second thing I think about is like career opportunities, right? So not just growth up or laterally, but like other opportunities, right? So like having lunch with the other folks in your bank can help you build deeper relationships. Your executive team knows you better. They'll think of you first, right? It's like personal branding. You want to be top of mind when it comes to those things. And then like, outside your bank, right? You can uncover opportunities to go elsewhere, right? Or I know lots of bankers that have flipped over to like a vendor role,
mm-hmm.
Or switched banks because of connections that they've made.
Absolutely. Well, and you made another great point for our list today too, Dan, about education. That's another huge benefit, and that can mean so many different things. But being in our own bubble is really, really dangerous.
Yeah.
And I use that word intentionally because it it can pigeonhole us into doing the same thing over and over the same way. And, when we get out and we have conversations with others, and right, maybe at surface they're a competitor, or they're, a bank down the street, or whatever the case may be. But when you get to learn about how they're doing things, and maybe they're innovative, and you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, I could cut my time in half for the way that we do this just by hearing a different methodology or platform, or whatever the case may be, or maybe learning a different way that they structure their accountability chart and their positions at their bank that are far more efficient than the way that we've been doing it.
Yeah.
So education can mean so many things, and largely it can be just by exposure. Just exposure. Right. Get out there and network and be a part of conversations, and somebody brings up a pain point, and the reverse, Dan. Maybe you bring up a pain point, and I can go, oh, hey man, look, we used to do it that way. Let me tell you about this deal. And you're going, oh wow, I never would have known about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, educational networking can be like non-intuitive too. Reading articles, right? Even if like the regulatory stuff bores you, read some articles about it. You'll learn a little bit, right? Talk to your leadership about what regulatory stuff they're worried about. Go to some stuff outside of your bubble and your kind of comfort zone to get more well-rounded. And often there's a lot of overlap between different things, and you'll learn stuff. You'll pick up on stuff, especially this year with the world. And we did an episode on crisis communications, like the world of regulatory actions, and the world of, with interest rates going up, the world of like lending and marketing are all kind of converging this year. It's more important than ever to be aware of everything that's going on in the industry, because as a marketer, as a kind of PR person, you need to be aware of what's going on to be able to talk to your customers about it.
There you go. And Dan, you had some thoughts also. You mentioned even reading articles and those types of things. So yeah, I didn't want to insinuate that networking is all about getting out and going to conferences. That's certainly a great one and a big one. Or, but there's so many other places to network and ways to do that. So what were some of your thoughts on those as well?
We start with conferences, right? That's the obvious one. And I just want to make the point that the banking industry is really great with state associations. Every state has at least one, and some 2, 3, 4 state associations that do a lot of educational stuff, get different groups of people together. And it's not necessarily the realm of the CEO of the bank, right? There's most associations will have a young leaders conference or a marketing conference or a leadership development kind of thing.
IT operations.
Yeah. And, I think no matter what role you're in or what level you're at, there's something you can get involved in. And maybe depending on the geography, like your bank's not going to send you to the national convention or even the annual one in your state, because with travel, it can get expensive, but there's little day things or even an hour-long webinar. And often those webinars have breakout groups where you meet other people. So I think the first place to look is like what association is your bank active in, and what do they have? And that's probably the easiest place to meet people. That plays, I think, too, into social media is the second kind of most obvious one.
Yeah.
On LinkedIn, LinkedIn today, even just over the last year or two, has really become it used to be more of like Facebook for business people, and it still sort of is in that way, but like there's groups, there's, LinkedIn newsletters, and, you can even do like live conversations on LinkedIn now. And so, there are groups there to engage with.
And a good place to I guess safely look at potential vendors. Or, all types of things. I mean, LinkedIn has got a lot of value also, like you say, for kind of every level of networking.
Yeah, well,
just getting out there and using it. Yeah.
Look at people within your bank, people outside of your bank, engage with them, right? You can see their public posts, comment like on them. You can build relationships, over LinkedIn pretty easily, right? And
you and I have ended up having guests on the show,
right?
here, that we got connected with one way or another through LinkedIn. And, lo and behold, they were really an expert in a certainly sector of marketing or something in the financial institution industry. So, yeah. You
Well,
never
and
know.
it's a great way to get to know people. And you scroll their profile and see maybe you went to the same school or, usually you'll find something in common with people and within the industry, right? If you want to move roles or if you're interested in working at a different bank, like you'd be surprised, like go, direct message somebody on there. And a lot of people are willing to hop on and have a conversation
There you go.
about stuff and just network that way. You don't have to wait for the convention.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the other ones that you and I have talked about too is connecting with and communicating and being in community with other vendors and partners as well.
Yeah.
And, you and I know from being agency owners that, my agency works with 65 banks. Most of them are all over the Southeast and some are in other parts of the country and all of that. But I consider us to be a pretty juicy resource in kind of the pulse of the industry, of what's going on. For example, my team just a couple of weeks ago was talking about, I think that we designed ads for CDs, about 3 of them over the last 4 or 5 years, until recently. And now we're doing CD, marketing for everybody's got great CD rates, but we can see how different people are doing different things. And you brought up our crisis communications, episode that we did and how some of our bank clients, had those platforms ready, and we did a great job of crisis communications, when SVB, came out and all that kind of stuff, or even during the pandemic, and others are not. And, we're kind of the hub for sometimes getting those phone calls from some of our clients going, hey, what's everybody else doing? We're stuck. We're not doing this well. What do you guys have ideas about other ways to do things? And that's just because we have a relationship with them. It's not us trying to sell another service. Our response often can be, oh, well, the ones that we see out of our big group of clients that are doing it well are doing this. And they go, oh, that's the answer I was looking for. Let me talk to my team. We need to instigate that as well. It's tremendous networking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, too, a lot of vendor, like I'm saying, we're vendors, right? We put out this podcast. We have a newsletter that, we're not trying to sell you. We're trying to share our knowledge with the community and be more of a part of the community, right? Like we're doing this largely for networking, and a lot of vendors do that. A lot of vendors, and I think the other part of it is we just talked about like sort of social media groups for banking or conferences for banking, but there's also the same groups and conferences for vendors. A lot of the bigger vendors run their own conferences where you can look at like marketing conferences that are like the marketing industry, right? Puts on these things. Salesforce and those types of companies have these big conferences where you learn a lot. I know here in St. Louis, the University of Missouri St. Louis does a big marketing conference in St. Louis every year that brings like 2,000 people and has like 20 speakers. And it's like $100 or maybe more than that now, but it's pretty cheap to go. And you can meet a lot of different marketers there. You can meet a lot of different people doing different things. And it hits all those things of like career opportunities, meeting people, education. So definitely don't, of course we're biased, but don't forget about what the information that vendors are putting out there.
There you go.
We're part of the industry. We think about the same problems you do. And, we're doing our jobs right if we're helping you do yours.
There you go. Very well said. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, Dan, I think our point today was to get folks thinking, about networking and bringing it to intentionality and front of mind and being part of the larger community, of your industry. And I like how, we kind of hit some of the specific places and ways to do that. But we also, I think, today have kind of brought to mind some of the significant benefits of it.
Yeah.
So not to mention, is enjoying your job more, oftentimes by getting out and being part of that community and networking with others and all of that. And that could be a big part of it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we spend a lot of time working, so make it fun.
There you go.
Look for ways that are fun for you. And, I think even if you're introverted, meeting new people and learning new stuff is rewarding. So yeah, encourage everybody, take this energy, right? Go out into the world, right? Connect with people, look for opportunities to do more of that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's cool for us to take an aside and bring to front of mind this intentionality of what it is that we do, because on this show, so much of our mission here is not just to talk about technical specifics and tips and techniques, but it's also to enhance you as our listener and your career and your growth in what you do. And this networking and being a part of community is a huge part of that.
Yeah.
Great.
For sure.
Well, cool. Well, Dan, you also mentioned our new news as well, and a great new way to engage with and get some really cool, juicy resources from us as well with the Bank Marketing Minute.
Yeah. So we've been doing this podcast for almost a year and a half now. And throughout that whole time, we were doing separate newsletters. And we said, hey, let's combine forces on that, right? We're talking about a lot of the same stuff. We're talking to, solving a lot of the same problems. So, we've just combined our newsletters together into a new resource called the Bank Marketing Minute. Again, it's more free stuff. We are going to be sending out a newsletter at the same pace as these podcast episodes are released, talking about, the same types of topics. So if you want to go, a little deeper, if you can't, if you miss an episode of the podcast, it'll be covering a lot of the same information there. So if you go to the Bank Marketing Show website, there'll be a link on there. We'll put a link to sign up for it in the show notes as well. So
yep, great. Well, and the nice thing for all of our listeners here is there's no sales pitch in it. There's no nothing. This is actually really resourceful, juicy information, and it's a Bank Marketing Minute. So it doesn't take 10 minutes to go through.
Yeah.
It doesn't take forever. It's not something you have to look at part of it and then you forget it and don't come back to see the rest of it later. It's about a minute. But it's really, juicy, resourceful stuff, because we know that's something that we can deliver, that people can absorb and be of value, and then get another one in a couple more weeks. So
yeah. And maybe you're right. If we're not, I don't know why we wouldn't be, but if we're not your top podcast, and you don't, like I said, you don't listen to every episode, you can get little summaries of it in the email, and we'll cover some different angles of things in that newsletter. Then we get onto the show. Some things just work better written. There you go. It's a good reminder of some of the things on the show as well in written form. So yeah, check it out. Subscribe, like, share, all that stuff.
There you go. And every bit of it is at bankmarketingshow.com, so you can check that out. And man, it's been great, Dan. Good to have conversation and to network a little bit about networking, right?
Yeah, very meta.
There you go. There you go. Well, cool. Well, and as we mentioned at the front end of this episode too, we've got some great guests coming on as well that are really resourceful, juicy tidbits of information and expertise in marketing and related industries. So be sure and stay tuned.
Yeah. Exciting stuff coming up.
There you go. Great to visit with you today, Dan. Enjoyed it,
Likewise.
man.
Likewise.
All right. You got it. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for joining us. To go deeper or get access to some of the valuable nuggets from today's show, go to bankmarketingshow.com. There you'll find episodes, links to resources, and much more. Be sure to subscribe wherever you find your podcasts. And join us next time.